Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of our English Learning Podcast. I'm so excited to be here with you today because we are going to talk about something that I know many of you struggle with: improving your listening skills in English. Whether you're a beginner or more advanced, listening can sometimes be one of the hardest skills to improve. But don't worry, I'm here to share my journey, and I hope that by the end of this episode, you'll have some tips and tricks to help you improve your listening, just like I did. So, let me start by telling you a bit about my story. When I first started learning English, I found it really difficult to understand people when they spoke. This was especially true when I tried to listen to native speakers. It seemed like they were speaking too quickly, and they used so many words that I didn't understand. I felt completely lost, and honestly, it made me feel discouraged. I would listen to a conversation or a video, and I couldn't understand anything. It was like they were talking in another language, even though I knew the words. But here's the thing, I wasn't alone in this. Most English learners feel the same way at the beginning. It's a normal part of the process. So, what did I do? Well, I didn't give up. And that's the first piece of advice I want to give you today. Don't give up. It may be hard now, but with time and practice, you will improve. You just need to keep going, even when it feels tough. I remember one of my biggest struggles at the beginning was how fast people spoke. I would try to listen to podcasts, YouTube videos, and even watch movies in English. But the words would fly by so fast that I couldn't keep up. I would have to pause the video every few seconds to catch up. And even then, it didn't make much sense. I felt really frustrated. But one day, I realized something important. I needed to start slow. I didn't need to rush my progress. I had to accept that understanding English takes time. So, instead of jumping into difficult videos or podcasts, I started with simpler content. I began listening to podcasts and watching videos that were made for beginners, or even ones aimed at kids. This was a huge help because it gave me the chance to hear English spoken clearly and at a slower pace. And you know what? This made a big difference. It wasn't so overwhelming anymore. At first, I felt embarrassed. I thought I should be able to understand more difficult material. But I quickly learned that starting slow is okay. In fact, it was necessary. It helped me build confidence, and slowly, I began to understand more. Now, let's talk about the next thing that helped me: repetition. When I first started listening to English, I thought I had to listen to a lot of different things to improve. I tried to listen to new content every day, but after a while, I realized that listening to the same thing over and over again actually helped me more than constantly switching to something new. One of the first things I repeated a lot was a podcast that I really liked. It was about travel, which is something I love. I listened to the same episode maybe 5 or 6 times. At first, it was difficult, and I couldn't catch everything. But with each listen, I understood more. I started to recognize words, phrases, and even the way sentences were formed. After a few days of listening to the same podcast, I felt much more confident. I wasn't just hearing words, I was understanding them. Repetition is very powerful. It helps your brain get used to hearing certain words and phrases, and this makes it easier to understand when you hear them again in other situations. I also did the same thing with the songs. I would listen to my favorite songs in English, and every time I listened, I would try to sing along. Sometimes I didn't know all the words, but I would repeat the ones I knew. This helped me get better at both listening and speaking. Now, let's talk about a tool that I think is really useful for anyone trying to improve their listening skills: subtitles. When I first started watching movies and TV shows in English, I used subtitles. But here's the thing: I didn't always use subtitles in my native language. I used English subtitles instead. This was really helpful. At first, I would read the subtitles carefully and then look up any words I didn't know. But over time, I didn't need the subtitles as much. My listening improved, and I could understand more without reading. However, I still use subtitles sometimes, especially when I'm watching a new movie or something with a different accent. It's a great way to help your listening, and it helps you get used to seeing words spelled correctly. Another thing that helped me was listening to different accents. English is spoken all over the world, and people from different countries have different accents. At the beginning, I was only used to hearing American English. I started listening to podcasts and watching videos from speakers in the UK, Australia, and even South Africa. It was hard at first, but over time, I got better at understanding different accents. I also noticed that some words are pronounced differently depending on the accent. For example, in the UK, they might say advertisement differently than in the US or in Australia. The accent can make the words sound a bit faster. Listening to these different accents helped me become more flexible and better at understanding all kinds of English. Next, I want to talk about practicing listening every day. I know it can be hard to find time every single day, but trust me, even just 10 minutes of listening every day will make a big difference. It doesn't have to be for a long time. The important thing is consistency. For example, you can listen while you're walking, cooking, or doing chores. I would listen to English podcasts or music while cleaning or on my way to work. This was a great way to practice because I could multitask while still improving my listening. Another great way to practice listening is to use different kinds of content. At the beginning, I mostly listened to podcasts, but as I improved, I started listening to news reports, documentaries, and even interviews with celebrities. This gave me a better understanding of different speaking styles. For example, podcasts usually have a conversational tone, while news reports have more formal language. The more variety you listen to, the more flexible your listening skills will become. And one last thing I want to mention is something I didn't do enough in the beginning, but it's really important. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. When I started learning English, I was really hard on myself. I would get frustrated when I didn't understand something. But over time, I realized that mistakes are part of the process. When you don't understand something, it's okay to ask questions or rewind the audio to listen again. Every time you practice, you are improving. So, don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are actually part of your learning. So, let's review the main things that helped me improve my listening skills in English. Start slow and practice with simple content first. Listen every day, even if it's just for a short time. Repeat the same podcasts, songs, or videos to improve. Use English subtitles to connect spoken and written words. Challenge yourself by listening to different accents. Practice with different types of content, like news, music, or interviews. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. They are part of learning. I hope these tips will help you just like they helped me. Remember, learning English is a journey, and it takes time. Be patient with yourself and enjoy the process. You'll get better every day. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions or would like to share your own story of improving your listening skills, feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you. Good luck with your English, and don't give up.